What's going on, you guys? You are now tapped in with the Stamper Podcast. This is episode 19. We 19 episodes in, y'all. We stopped for a while, but we getting this thing cooking. We building momentum, and we're not gonna stop. I got a special guest in the building. It's a gentleman who I've been waiting to sit down with. Quick story, real quick, man. I connected with this brother through Andre's Notary Business School.
Yes, sir.
And this man has been giving me knowledge, gems after gems after gems, and the information has worked. So this is a gentleman I want to sit down with. I've had the pleasure of collaborating with him on an assignment as well. We have Joe Butler in the building. How you doing, Joe?
Oh, doing good, man. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it. Like I said, this has definitely been a long time coming for both of us.
Absolutely, man. We finally happy that we're able to get down and connect with each other, have a meeting in the minds, and hopefully with this episode, we will give it's not just notaries, but just the people, the audience, a lot of value in general.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, in the industry, it's a lot of people tend not to want to do. I think everyone tries to hoard information to themselves and think it's, some proprietary. There's enough business out there for all of us. So,
Absolutely.
you and I can sit down together, and if, what comes out of this is somebody else making a couple extra dollars, and God bless them, man. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. So just starting out, just tell the people about yourself, right? And how'd you get into the notary industry?
So, really funny story. So I got into the notary industry actually a year as of last week. So, I had actually sold my business. I was a partner in a technology consulting firm for a better part of a decade, had a pretty solid exit. I was the past 20 years I've been in technology sales, typically focusing on like enterprise level, like technology like rollouts for big banks. So on a given year, I was typically selling, 25 to $30 million worth of services and product during the year for a lot of years. So, ended up selling to my partner. I was kind of just worn out, working 100 plus hours a week. So what I did after I exited is I actually opened up a sales consulting company. And what I did is I, got approached by a bunch of, services companies, a bunch of hardware and software companies saying, hey, can you rep our products here in the US and we'll pay you a retainer plus a high commission. But listen, you make your own schedule, you make your hours, you work when you want to work. So for me, it was, a great opportunity. And about a year ago, obviously during COVID, my wife and I were looking to go into a business where we could kind of be partners in, together, kind of build something up. She was a teacher for several years, originally out in Brooklyn. Then we relocated to New Jersey when we had our first son about 19 years ago. Well, not about, but it was 19 years ago when he was born, so ended up, we got to talking, we were thinking about something in the real estate industry. We now have a few friends in the mortgage business. And I found that to be a complete grind where I didn't want to be, just selling again 24/7 because I was going back on the hamster wheel again.
Yeah.
So, ended up, believe it or not, I'll look on my Explore page on Instagram, and there was one of Andre's ads for Notary Business School. So first thing I said was, he has the 2 to 12,000 K club. And I'm like, this is not a bad thing. I'm like, so I call a friend of mine who's in the mortgage business. I'm like, listen, I go, is this actually a thing right now? Where I go, I'm used to going to a bank, getting something notarized or paying someone like, $2 a page over at the UPS store. And he was like, Joe, he's like, in the mortgage business, this is a real thing. He goes, during COVID, no one wants to come to an office. They want you to come to them. He goes, it can be a pretty lucrative business. So, on a whim, I reached out to Andre. He and I had a great conversation. We were very upfront with a lot of stuff. We ended up talking for a bit, and I am taking his original class. And I kind of just like, after about 15, 20 minutes of the first class, the light bulb went off in my head. This is a real business. And, we got to getting into the business like everybody else, signed up with, signingorder.coms, SnapDocs, everybody else kind of sat there twiddling my thumb saying, well, when's God going to deliver 100 signings to me? My wife, did a little bit different. She went with the loan signing systems to do the training, a little more fluffier, let's say, than, going, where I found like Andre's and some other people's, their stuff is very compact. It's, you get a lot out of it in a very short period of time. Like it's like no nonsense.
Right.
So all of a sudden, got our first few orders in. This is something I always recommend to everyone is, when you first start, work with the signing services, because believe me, you're learning on their dime.
Right.
You're not going to get the money that you are going to eventually get to, but it's better than paying for it. Where, you know, listen, you're going to clear money, you're going to make money. It's, you know, going to take a bunch of junk assignments, especially now. Cause I mean, I've seen, I mean, I signed up half the signing services. And I mean, I'm seeing the companies I used to get $120, $130 for a refi are down to like $75. And it's like 75 miles away from my house. So, you know, then a few months later, we kind of pivoted a bit and I started doing, you know, as I hate saying this phrase, and, you know, we've talked about this before, general notary work. Like there's two different things. It's at the end of the day, it's all notary work, whether it's,
Right.
you know, I'm stamping a trust, a will, whatever it might be, or I'm doing someone's mortgage, I'm still providing the same service.
Right.
But what I found out with that business was I'm making a whole heck of a lot more money for doing a whole heck of a lot less work. You know, I'll go out and I did a trust last weekend. They wanted me to come out Saturday morning. I was there, I would say 30 minutes. It was 20 minutes each way, $300 for an hour of my life. It would have taken me double that to do a mortgage closing at 150. So I don't differentiate between general notary work and between, you know, loan signing or notary signing agent, or however you want to, you know, I think people call themselves actually want to either seem more important or higher up in the food chain, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're all a bunch of guys and girls with stamps. I mean,
Right.
let's just call it what it is. And we're providing, I mean, listen, we're providing a phenomenally valuable service to the marketplace. You know, I have a lot of friends that work in the bank industry, and I spoke to a local branch manager. I was explaining to her what I'm doing. And she goes, oh, it makes sense. She goes, right now, she goes, other than like, you know, stamping like one signature, she goes, most of the banks can't stamp anything anymore. There was so much fraud during COVID, especially the PPP loans. Those bank officers won't do anything. They won't touch a will, a trust, a power of attorney, nothing. If it's not a simple, hey, I'm so-and-so and stamp my signature, they don't want to hear about it. I don't care how much you have in your account there. They're not going to do it anymore. So it comes down to, I'll tell you, it's actually funny. I was talking, you know, to my older son, he's 19, he's a college freshman. And I was explaining to him, you know, what we're doing. And he goes, oh, like you guys are basically like the DoorDash of your industry. He's like, it's, you know, people are paying for the convenience.
Right.
And I'm like, out of the mouth of babes. I'm like, I had to basically have my 19-year-old explain to me really what the industry is.
Yeah.
But, you know,
DoorDash
we've had,
to the industry.
you know, we've had a lot of success, you know, in working in areas that typically a lot of folks wouldn't think to work in. You know, a lot of it's popped up through doing stuff through Thumbtack, collaborating with other folks. I mean, listen, between you, Andre, you know, Tech, and Tiger, legitimately, there's probably no four better people to learn from in the industry. Especially, I mean, listen, Tiger is an absolute beast when it comes to, again,
Monster.
general notary work. And he is. I mean, his call scripts. I mean, I use his. Listen, I sold $20 million of services a year for 20 years. I use his closing techniques to close people. My conversion rate on Thumbtack went from like 20% to like 75 now. You know, so I mean, that's the thing. And that's the thing. You know, listen, that's the problem. Like a lot of people now, they don't want the time to learn from each other. Yeah. All you get is, you know, I don't know if I see a lot of times in a lot of the Facebook groups, you see a new notary, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, who can mentor me?" Well, mentor yourself first. Go out, get the proper training. You know, listen, yeah. Andre's class. Listen, Andre should start paying me a commission for saying this, but his classes a lot of times you get them for $75, $100. Your courses are fantastic. You know, I mean, for less than, you know, $300-400, you're getting everything you need. You know, so that's why I always get a little like, you know, I kind of roll my eyes. We see someone who's like, oh, I need someone to mentor me. It's like, well, what are you giving me in return for my time? My time is worth. Listen, my time. Listen, I got my signs. I know what my sign time is worth down to the minute.
Right.
You know, not even the hour. I know basically to the minute. I know what it costs me to print a piece of paper. You know, I know basically any loan document is going to cost me $6 to print between the cost of my toner, cost of my paper. Because they're averaging 150 pages. You figure it out. It comes out to about $6 on a laser printer.
You know, so that's science.
You have to listen. At the end of the day, no matter what we're doing, selling, it's a business. At the end of the day, we're here to make money. I always tell people, listen, I'll wear my priestly collars on Sunday, but Monday through Friday, you know, I got to make money. Absolutely. You know. And we're providing a very valuable service. Listen, I did a trust a few weeks ago. The guy, you know, had no problem paying $300 because originally his attorney wanted to do it and wanted to charge him $350 an hour, 3-hour minimum. I provide the same service for a third of the cost. So that's the thing. I mean, I think a lot of folks get so hung up on the whole concept of just doing loan work
Yeah.
that, listen, it's there. I mean, listen, I'm doing two today. It's happened to be there within 10 minutes of my house, and they're direct with title companies paying me, great money to go do it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot more, like I say, there's a lot more ways to skin a cat. It's not just, doing wills and trust and power of attorneys and loan docs. There's a million other ways to make money out here in this business. I mean, and you can make as little or as much as you want. I mean, listen, I'll tell you hands down. I mean, I have a regular, I run my own company doing sales during the day a lot of the times. But right now we're averaging, between myself and my wife, we're bringing in an extra $7,000-8,000 a month. And if you don't think that number's, people are like, oh, I'm only making $2,000 a month. Listen, I think anyone in this economy would love an additional $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month. You put it in a index, low cost index fund and do that for 2-3 years. Your life's looking pretty good. So it's, listen, it's everything else. It's, the more you hustle, and this business is a complete straight hustle, not like, I don't mean like a street hustle way. I mean it in that it's, you got to be willing to put the hours in, you got to grind. And this is a situation where, you truly are going to get out of it what you put into it.
Absolutely. And it's so much time. It's so much to unpack and everything that you just said just now. It's really how you get out what you get in. And I think a lot of people, once they come into the industry, they hear, oh, it's loan closings. And it's pretty simple. You just sign up on the platforms and you expecting for them to reach out to you for business. But for the ones that's actually doing well for themselves, like, no, they sending out those emails. They doing cold calling. They making those relationships. Like it's a constant foot on the pedal each and every single day. And so you can't really look at anybody else and try to figure out like why they get more business than me. I was like, no, well, because they start new conversations literally every day. The more conversations that you make, the more relationships that you can build, then that's when you start to see those plants, those seeds come to fruition. So if it's anything that y'all can take from that,
there's no doubt about that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, without a doubt. Listen, especially on cold calling, let me tell you, that's something, if you're afraid of the phone, you're not going to make big numbers in this business. Sales at the end of the day is a contact sport. The more you contact, the more you're going to make. And believe me, I cold called for 20 years of my life, working in the banking industry. And the one thing I learned, especially if you're trying to call people who are like owners of title agencies and escrow companies, you got to call first thing in the morning. You got to call between 7:30 and 9 a.m. And that's for one reason alone, because the secretary and the administrative assistants don't get there to 9. They're actually picking their own phones up.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, that's how I landed a title company here in New Jersey that's got 25 offices. End up calling the guy up, got him at 7:25 in the morning. He happened to be in the office. His gatekeeper wasn't there to answer the phone. Had a great conversation. I did a lot of research before I called him. There's tools out there. I mean, every title company's employees are on LinkedIn. Another one I use is a platform called Seamless AI.
Yep.
It allows you to research any company, any person, get their email address, their direct phone number. It's free. I use that. You can't believe. So when I called this guy, I knew where he went to college, where he worked. He listed his interests on his LinkedIn profile. Happened to be that he was a college wrestler at UPenn. My older son is actually a wrestler at the Citadel in South Carolina. Had a great conversation about amateur athletics. And within 15 minutes, his vendor management person's calling me saying, I'm sending you a vendor packet. We want to use you, now. So all comes, to building up relationship. And I mean, that, and especially in this industry, I mean, if you understand on the loan closing business, all of us know a mortgage guy.
Yeah.
And the mortgage guy, truthfully, in the process can tell the title company who they want to use to close it.
Thank you.
That's a big.
Thank you for saying that.
I mean, and the mortgage guy at the end of the day, he's got the control. You talk to the mortgage guy, but listen, I'll tell you, one thing I do with my folks is I tell every mortgage guy I work with that whatever referrals they give me, I'll donate back 5% of my proceeds to the nonprofit of their choice. So that way, because I, and that's the thing. Also, you and I talked about this when you and I first got hooked up. Is there's a big difference between when people help you out, make intros, they listen to you to give you a deal. There's a vast difference between appreciation and gratitude.
Yeah.
So something simple like with you, I did a trust for you up in West Orange a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Second was done. Thank you email. That was my appreciation. I sent you a Starbucks gift card. That was my gratitude. It's an act of doing something, not just saying something. It's easy to say something.
Yeah.
And people, especially listen, in this industry, we need caffeine, man. This is a 24-hour a day, complete grind business.
Right.
So so it's one of the things. I'll talk to real estate agents, mortgage people. I'll talk to escrow. I'll talk to anyone. You never know. I did a signing. I'll give you a good example. About a month ago, late night Sunday night, out in a very affluent area in New Jersey where I live. It's about an hour away. Area called Pennington. Like every house is like 5,000 square feet and bigger. Guy's parents were flying back to India. They had to get some things notarized. Rolled out there, no problem. I looked him up before I got out there. So, looked him up on LinkedIn. The guy owned 2 or 3 large consulting companies. So got to talk while I'm doing the signing and say, hey, a curiosity, you got 4,000 or 5,000 employees in across the US. How do you handle the verification of your I-9s? And he's like, oh my God, that's a huge problem for us. I said, well, I have the solution. I can come to your office one day a month. Listen, if you want, I can do remote online notarization for you. And the guy looked at me, his eyes lit up and was like, oh my God, please call me Monday. I'll put you with my HR people. Now I'm going up, 2 days a month to his office and doing all his I-9s. He onboards, 50, 60 new consultants a month. That's a huge thing. That's why, in any state in the country, it carries over. Call any staffing agency, call, the Adecos of the world, the Pontoons, the companies that do light industrial staffing. Nursing staffing is huge. Every time a nurse goes to another agency, they have to get re-credentialed. They're going to need fingerprints. So you know what? Get into mobile fingerprinting. There is a lot of money right now. I'll give you a good example. In my area right now, if you want to get your fingerprints done at either Indigo or CGM Morpho, 13-week backup, 13 weeks. So I've been calling brokerage companies now. Listen, you have new brokers, passing the 7 and 63. They got to get their fingerprints rolled. So, I have no idea how to do them. So I call a few friends of mine who are police officers, retired corrections officers. Guys, listen, do you want to make some money? And the first thing is, I got, like everyone else with kids, hell yeah, I need money. So I have these guys now out, I'm splitting down the middle with them. I'm just basically brokering the deals out to them now. I have one guy who's a former corrections officer, is making more money rolling fingerprints for me with brokerage firms than he did ever being a corrections officer. The money's out there. We spoke about, it was a by accident thing on Thumbtack. I had a property management company need to get some eviction stuff, notarized. So I went down to their office. It was 6 apartments in my town. And the first thing I said to them was, before we even start, I'm just making sure you don't want me to actually go knock on doors too. I'm not doing that. I'm too old for that crap.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking on doors. And they go, well, would you if we paid you an extra $200 per thing? I said, well, I won't, but I have a guy who will. Called a friend of mine, retired police officer. He goes, I'll meet you in 15 minutes. Well, the good thing with that is that property management company has 37 other buildings in New Jersey they're responsible for. So they called me and said, listen, we don't have enough people to do this. Can we outsource it to you? And listen, I hate being the guy that's one of the stamps I truly hate doing. But at the end of the day, listen, they got to run a business, and they're actually good where they allow people 60 days to vacate versus 30. So they're being kind of human about it. Yeah. That's huge, right? All the moratoriums across the country are being lifted. If I was a notary right now, I would call every property management company in my town, ask who's handling notarization of their eviction notices. I did 6 that day. They paid me $100 per stamp on each one, and then $200 to serve each one. So it was $1,800 a day. Give my guy, $700. I walked out with $1,100 check for what came out to be about an hour and 20 minutes of my day. It's the money's there. You got to get creative, because listen,
money is
everyone,
there.
their mother. And the thing is this, everyone's so hung up on just doing loans. I'm a loan signing agent. Listen, and nothing against, the big guy who does all the training on that, not to be mentioned. It's like, it's almost like Harry Potter. You can't mention the name, but it's the thing where, listen, his courses are great. You learn a lot, but he's great at marketing himself more than he is marketing to the loan companies. And some of the promises they make around, you're going to make $200 a signing. I'm sorry, man. I'm director of a lot of title companies. I pretty much get, 150, 175 every once in a while. I'll get a 200.
Yeah.
And listen, that's nothing to sneeze at. I have notaries working for us now. Like we spoke about, I have a lot of guys who are helping me out who are previous Army combat veterans. it is an absolutely great business for them. These guys, I mean, one guy who's doing work for me now, great story, 17 years in special forces, retired early medically because he actually had a bad parachuting accident in Afghanistan. He's out making good money right now. And I pretty much, I was glad to see him, have a low stress job. I mean, listen, what's the worst stress we have in this? We get a paper jam in a printer, or I ran out of ink for a minute. I mean, those are problems that can be fixed in like 3 seconds.
Absolutely.
So I mean, this is a pretty stress-free job as long as you're organized and you, again, want to hustle. I mean, listen, if you just sit back and, you wait for God to will you, jobs through SnapDocs, it's going to be a real painful process for you.
That's why I tell notaries, like you can't always depend on that algorithm to swing in your favor, because if you solely depending on waiting on that, you're gonna be waiting. I can't tell you when the last time I've gotten an order through SnapDocs. Literally, I can't tell you.
I got one last night, but I had to decline because it was so absolutely insulting. Yeah. I mean, they basically wanted me to, they gave it to me at 5, wanted me to go somewhere at 6. We're like, we're going to send you the docs while you're on the way, and you print them somewhere out for us, and we'll give you $65. And I was like, yeah, that's just not going to work for me. I'm like, I'd rather, sit home and like pet my dog. I'm like, that's not happening.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, with the legal document signings, like, I mean, I'm getting paid $125. I'm getting paid $200 for a trust, and it takes me less than 30 minutes to complete. I don't have to drop the documents at FedEx. Typically, I don't have to scan back documents, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm getting paid either the same day or the same week. You think I'm going to do that all day, every day? No question.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've gotten to the point now, like when I take jobs off Thumbtack for any kind of documents, I mean, first thing I do is send them a link to book at my calendar. Yep. The second link they get is for payment. And if you're using a credit card, you're paying me in advance before I get there.
Right.
I don't even wait for, I mean, if you're paying me cash, you hand it to me before I sign a single thing, because I can't take back a stamp.
Yeah.
But no, one of the things I think, I've heard you talk about it before previously, and I think it's really important. I think, as professionals, a lot of times, even the way we present ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, you go to an appointment, I don't care if it's a $50 power of attorney somewhere, get dressed appropriately, be organized, have your stuff in order, know what you're doing ahead of time. I mean, there's enough ways to get help in this industry. I mean, my God, at my first start, I can't even tell you how many times I called the National Notary Association hotline at a signing.
Yeah.
Because I was just, there's something there, there'd be some weird thing there, but I always make sure, if I'm doing any kind of loan stuff, any kind of notarization, except if I do corporate stuff, I'm actually going to a company, then I'll wear a suit. Otherwise, I go at least, dress shirt, slacks, dress shoes when I'm showing someone's house to show them enough respect for the money they're paying me.
Right.
I went to one appointment once. Legitimately, they needed a power of attorney to leave to go to Jamaica, and I just got off the treadmill, and it was, I mean, like a real sweaty, bad session. And I'm like, listen, let me shower. I'll be to you in like 30 minutes. She's like, I need you here in like 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm a hot mess. I'm in like running shoes and shorts. She's like, I don't care. I'm like, that's the one time I actually broke my own rule. I mean, I felt horrible going over there.
Yeah.
But normally I would have, I think a lot of it is, I think that the better you carry yourself and project yourself, the clients are willing to pay a higher premium.
Yeah.
Especially, on the loan signing stuff, a lot of stuff I do is either in title's office, or I'm doing a lot of stuff actually in bank branches lately too. Listen, if the client just show up in shorts and t-shirt, I don't care, because listen, they're the ones signing the doc. I don't care, but I'm going to represent, the title company, the lender, or more importantly, I'm going to represent my own brand.
Yeah.
Better than anything else. Like, listen, I mean, I did that one for you up in North Jersey, 9:00 in the morning. I was, shirt and jacket and pair of slacks at 9:00 in the morning. By the way, those people are two of the sweetest human beings I ever met in my lifetime.
Really?
The husband actually wants to start doing notary work too. So I've actually been going back and forth to him a little bit. Great couple.
Let's go.
So that's one of the things I look at this industry also is, it's great because you get to interact with people and these short like bursts where you're hearing, great stories they've got, especially in my area, on the loan signing stuff. We do a lot of reverse mortgage because I'm in central New Jersey, and there's an older population out here, man. Some of the stories you hear from these people. I did a signing at about half an hour from my house about 3-4 months ago, and this guy was actually on the first helicopter that landed in Vietnam with U.S. soldiers on it. He was like number 3 guy on the ground, boots on the ground. And just hearing the stories this guy had. So if you ever watched the movie When We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, he was actually in that battle. So he's got pictures all over the wall. I mean, everything's verifiable. and just hearing some of the stuff from these guys. I mean, see, that's a good way. I think, a lot of notaries turn their, they turn their nose up to doing that. But how I really, cut my teeth in this is I had a title company in Maryland. There's a lot of work in Jersey, actually have me doing a lot of reverse mortgage applications for them.
Yeah.
And it got me used to dealing with people in a different way. Like I'm used to dealing with like corporate chief information officers and CTOs, who are a whole different, ball of wax. But going out to really to an individual level,
Yeah.
and it really made me get really comfortable really quick. And it really showed me the value of being, a mobile notary, that I'm making these people's lives a little bit easier, even for 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's been, it's been a fulfilling experience for me, for my wife as well. And listen, we're at a point now where, we're doing $8,000-$10,000 a month, net at the end of the day. Listen, unless you're Jeff Bezos, or if you're like Elon Musk, an extra 100 G's a year is transformational. That makes life a whole heck of a lot easier, without a doubt. And listen, I'm not a big believer in coincidence. There's a reason that the God put Andre and I together, and this happened to be, typically, listen, you go to my Instagram Explore page, it's pretty much just videos of puppies and dogs. That's it. That's usually the algorithm sends me. But for some reason, out of nowhere, it sent me like this Andre Hatchett mobile notary school, and I'm like, first I'm like, how the heck am I going to make money doing this?
Yeah.
And it really, I'll tell you what, I took this course. One of the things that's great with Andre is that, and you as well, is that any question, comment, I'll message you and I get an answer back in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Andre's been, and I think that's the thing. I mean, one of the things I think is really important is business leaders, is that we have to be able to support each other. I had a gentleman I worked with years ago who's actually probably the best sales guy on the face of the planet, but he was also a Baptist minister at the same time. So he had great stories, great analogies, and we got to talking. And I'm like, I said something about just being stressed out, not being able to talk to someone about what goes on professionally. And he goes, Joe, I got to tell you something. He goes, you got to look at it this way. He goes, you're the shepherd of your flock. He goes, you're keeping your sheep safe. You're keeping them fed, healthy. He goes, you're protecting them from outside, issues. He goes, well, what happens when the shepherd needs help? Who's helping him? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, the rest of the shepherds around him. He goes, that's why you got to keep, you have to help each other out. And I think that's the important thing. It's so weird. So many people get so cutthroat over, sitting there waiting stuff from like the closing exchange or Snap Docs or this or that. If you work together, I mean, I've had a ton of work I've farmed out to other people just because it didn't match my schedule, or if it was an area that just a little bit further out of typically where I want to go. I mean, luckily now, I mean, we're typically not going more than, my wife and myself aren't really going more than like 45 minutes outside of where we live. And then we have notaries across the state of New Jersey that, we'll farm stuff out to.
Yeah.
We keep the 34, because, and listen, our kids are super busy. My younger guy plays ice hockey. By the way, if you ever want to get rid of all your money, have a kid with skates on his feet. There's not a more expensive sport in this world you'll ever play. So it's been something for us where we've, it's been good for us as business partners, and that's the other thing that's really important. I think we should touch on, because I see a lot of folks on Facebook making a lot of these posts. You got to project your company the way you want it to be down the line, not what it is today.
Right.
Whether it be, a proper website, your business cards, have a business telephone number, I use a virtual office address for mine, because I learned the hard way. I had myself listed on Google originally, had my home address. I had someone come knock on my door at like 8 p.m. at night. Oh, I need something notarized. And I'm like, how the hell did you find my house? He's like, oh, on Google, it comes back to this address. So it's just easier, it's making sure you establish, the right, legal vehicle for your business, whether you decide to go sole proprietor, LLC, C Corp, S Corp. I think a lot of people get hesitant, making sure you got the right equipment, to do stuff. I mean, believe me, the first day I had to spend, $800 on a printer, I was like, oh my God, am I ever going to make this back? And making sure I went and got my, my Wi-Fi enabled brother double tray printer, which is like a godsend for me. It's not going to Staples anymore. And then I ended up, getting a really high end, big Fed scanner. So, I mean, I can pretty much, print and scan all day if I had to. Yeah. But it's, it's really, it's funny. I don't know if you ever saw the podcast. There's a guy that runs all these like financial seminars. This guy, Dan Pena, he's a billionaire. First of all, guy's got the rudest mouth. Dude, so Dan's got the rudest mouth on the face of the planet, but he's got some gems of wisdom occasionally. And the one thing he said that it stuck with me was that, don't ever say, I can't afford this. Say, what do I have to do to afford this? So I said, okay, you know what? I want an $800 printer. I got to do five more signings this week that I wouldn't have done. I want a $500 scanner. I got to do 3 more this week so I can pay for the scanner. That's one of the things that a lot of people, I think, get hesitant up front. They, when they don't cost their business outright. Because when I first started, and I'll tell you, I mean, I'm someone who comes with 20 years of business experience. I have a NYU Stern MBA.
Yeah.
And when I first started the business, I probably was at a break even or at a loss because I didn't want to do certain things. So I was running the staples, printing out, 300 pages costing me $35. Well, that I was getting $100 signings and 30 was going out the window to staples. Not knowing what my printing cost. I mean, I could tell you legitimately to the penny what each page of paper coming out of the printer costs me. I mean, I haven't factored down to I haven't got to figure out how to factor in the electricity cost, but I'm almost there. I'm working on that one. But it's one of those things where I think you have to really, run it like a business, because it is. I mean, listen, I know a lot of people who own businesses who don't net $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. This is a business where, you can very easily, by just hard work, do that. I mean, listen, I always refer back to, the movie Wall Street with Charlie Sheen back in the 80s. All he did was dial for dollars all day. I mean, I wake up every morning and I cold call or make return calls from 7:30 to 9. Because truthfully, if you're in the business world and you're busy, you own a title company, you're not picking your phone up at 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock because you're trying to get out of there by 5, get home, get your day over with. You're putting out fires all day.
Yep.
Call early. I mean, there's so many free tools out there. I mean, like one of the most is called seamless.ai. It's the same thing as Zoom Info, but it's cheap. It's actually free.
Yeah.
And their information is probably about 95% correct. So it'll give you people's direct numbers. It'll give you their mobile numbers. It'll give you their, all their social media profiles. So before I call someone, I know a whole heck of a lot about them. I've looked them up on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I know how many kids they've got. I know where they, it's not stalkerish, but it makes the conversation so much more tailored versus saying, hey, I'm a mobile notary, give me business.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of folks make that mistake up front is, one of the most important things in the business world, and I've always, especially when you're selling, because listen, whether we're notarizing this, that, we're selling ourselves at the end of the day. That's the service we're selling. You're selling you, I'm selling me, is that you got to come up with 2 things. One being a value proposition, saying, what value do I provide for you and your business? How do I solve a problem for you? The other one, and this is where a lot of folks get really jammed up on, is you got to have an elevator pitch. You need to have a concise 30-second blurb. If someone sets you in an elevator, hey, Joe, what do you do for a living? You should be able to say in 30 seconds, I'm a mobile notary company. We work in the following industries. Hey, by the way, we're kind of like the DoorDash of the notary business. We come to you, we save your time, money. We can do X, Y, and Z. 30 seconds, I can articulate out exactly what we do. We're a 5-year-old would understand what we do. I think one of the other things a lot of notaries start taking a look at, I actually came back this morning, talk to your car dealerships. I mean, everyone's got that area in their town where there's 20, 30 car dealerships. Let me tell you something, the last weekend of the month and the last weekend of the quarter are the most stressful times because all they're trying to do is pump deals out.
Yeah.
That's all they're trying to do. And if I worked for one today, this morning, they were short someone, they want to leave their sales manager on the floor. So I come and say, listen, if you were able to be on the floor the entire day, not having to notarize titles and handle this stuff, and I came in, how many more cars could you sell on a Saturday and on a Sunday? What guys going to be, probably if I'm on the floor the whole day, I can do an extra 12 cars a weekend. I go, okay, 12 a weekend. I go, that's 48 a month. That's 135 a quarter. What does that do for your bottom line? And the number the guy threw out, because average car in America now is over 50 grand. That's $5 more million in sales because they got my rear end sitting in the seat with a stamp. And I tell them point blank, you want me here for the day, it's $600 per day. Period. Not $599.99. I don't want you to go to the sales manager for half an hour, talk about it. I'll sit there in the office with a bottle of water, cup of coffee on my phone, and whether I sign one or I sign 100, I have a flat fee for the day. That is one of the biggest gems. That doing I'll tell you the I-9s. I'll tell you Tiger's a big believer in that too. I-9 verification. I mean, my God, with everything going on, we're almost at negative unemployment right now. People are getting hired every day somewhere, and someone's got to validate that I-9. Why not be you? Why not be me? I mean, every county, every city, has a staffing company. They've got a temp agency who are understaffed, and you can go in there and, go in a day. I charge $12.50 per I-9 I verify. I'll go in twice a month. I'll do 120 I-9s in 2 days. I make $2,500 in basically just doing that.
What's the typical payout for I-9s?
$12.50 per I-9.
You said how many you doing a day?
I could easily validate 60 to 70 in a day without even blinking or get up and go to the bathroom. And I say that because I ran an IT consulting company for 20 years, so I understand like the back office process of that. Like I can wake up and do it in my sleep. Very easy for someone to go and do 20, 30 a day, sit there in someone's office, drinking their coffee, drinking out of their water, eating their snacks, and just, sign your life away all day. It's, the money's out there. It's just, you got to network yourself. Yeah. And the biggest, I'm seeing a lot of success lately now, actually, even with Google Ads. I mean, listen, I'm almost 50 years old, so I don't, I'm still catching up with some of the technology. I've got to go ask my kids sometimes what stuff is. Yeah. I actually want my 16-year-old to get certified as a Google Ads specialist for me now, just so, because I'm kind of, futzing around with it, but my ROI on my Google Ads is at least 8 to 10x. I'm spending, 150 a month. I'm getting at least $2,000 of signings from my Google Ads.
Can't beat that. That's great ROI.
That's where you want to be. You want to be able to, not to sound like, what's his name? Oh, Grant Cardone. You got 10x everything. Yeah. That's what you want to be in your rate of return. And it comes down to business fundamentals. That's why personally, I love Notary Gadget as a tracking tool for tax purposes and revenue purposes. It's pretty rudimentary, but it gets the job done. And I'll tell you, honestly, I can look back on that, really look at my trends, where I'm spending money, where most of my work's coming from, yeah. And I think it's also, the marketing part is really the big thing, the key. Talk to your escrow officers, talk to us. But more importantly, there's a book out there. It's old, not as old as I am, but it's been out for a while. It's a book called Selling the Vito, VITO, which means very important top officer. So, the way your pitch goes when you're selling an escrow officer or a title officer is saying, listen, hey, do you have something for me to sign where, you guys can't get to, where the person doesn't want to come to your office? I'm calling up the owner of a title company. I'm pitching him basically how I can fix a business problem for him. I had a title guy we work with here in Jersey, great company. They're expanding rapidly. They've got 25 plus offices. And I'm like, I told him on even an hour's notice, I'll send a notary to any office he's got. If someone calls out sick, they're double booked, whatever it is, we'll send someone, no problem. I'm big on mass mailing. You can buy mailing lists now for pennies on the dollar. I'll get every escrow company, every title company, every mortgage person, every real estate attorney. What I started doing recently, because I live about 45 minutes to an hour from New York City, depending on the day, is I market to all the personal injury attorneys in New York City, because they have clients in Jersey who are not going to be able to come in and sign their affidavits. I come in and I notarize them, and they have no problem. I remember my first one, the guy called me up and was like, can you go? It was maybe 5 minutes from my house. And I'm like, he's like, how much do you want? I'm like, I didn't know any better. I go, give me 100. He goes, well, I pay everybody else 200, so I'll give you 200 also. What did I know? Now all of a sudden, you need me to get an affidavit signed for an attorney, it's $200. I'll go all over the state of New Jersey for those all day. So I send emails out once every 3 weeks to almost every personal injury attorney in New York City, because they don't want to send their staff out to Jersey. Listen, across the bridge or across the tunnel, it's $21 now. Just a drive from A to B. That's just going through the tunnel. So I'm making what this whole industry about is convenience. Listen, I'll give you a great example. I pay double the price for my dry cleaning because they pick up and deliver. I don't have to go to the dry cleaner.
Yep.
I don't mind paying an extra, $10 to get my stuff from Whole Foods, because guess what? Amazon Prime's bringing it to my house for $9 and saving me, 2-3 hours of going to the grocery store. We live in a convenience economy. So
Yep.
it's not just about, and again, I'm not harping on loan closing at all, because listen, that has paid for several bills in my house. It's,
Same here.
paying for a lot of good stuff, but it's not the end all be all. And truthfully, I hate saying that I can't do general notary work, but at the end of the day, if I look at what I make per hour on, general notary work versus loan closing, I make almost double per hour.
Yeah.
And I'm not faxing back. I'm not scanning back. I'm not trying to drive 100 miles an hour to a FedEx facility at 5:55 trying to dump it in. So there's, a lot to be said about it. I think it's important. I think the idea of, even the concepts that we're seeing around automation, I'm just trying to get into that now. I've been listening to Tech and Tiger on that stuff. They're taking that stuff to a whole new level. I'm just trying to, almost comprehend. Like I told my 16-year-old, listen, you're going to need to watch this, and you just, you give me the cliff notes.
Yeah. That's the automation is the game changer.
It really is. Sure. It is, man. Even as far as I saw a huge increase for me once I even just put, a calendar on my website where people can actually book appointments, and they just choose what they want me to do. And it has the price there, point blank. It's like, okay, you want a power of attorney done, $150. You want a trust done, $300. It blocks it out, puts it in. They put the information in. I get it, call confirm. Again, you want to pay credit card, you pay the day before, because I had a situation with this. Is I went and did I swiped their card, drove down there, 5 minutes later disputed it. So I do it the night before. That way it sweeps out of my merchant account into my checking account, cannot be reversed. If you do it the other way, the credit card processing company freezes the funds.
Yeah.
That's why credit card, you pay the day before. Because people, unfortunately, listen, we live in a world where people do some lecherous crap. And that's
folks
one
will
of
try
them.
to folks will try to dispute those charges in a second.
Mm-hmm.
In a second, and they don't got no qualms about doing so either.
Oh yeah, that's why I tell people, I'm very honest with them. I said, I literally ask for, let's choose, why do you make me pay in advance? They go, because that time is booked. If you cancel me less than 4 hours beforehand, you're still paying for the session, because I could have booked something else. But more importantly, if you go to dispute it, that money is already out of my merchant account in my checking account. Then it becomes a you versus me thing, which I'm going to win.
Yeah.
At that point, that money's in there. Your merchant, so I use Square. Square will freeze that money until it gets cleared up. That money could sit there for 3, 4, 5 weeks. Listen, I got stuff to buy, man. It's pool season up here finally in Jersey. I got chlorine to buy. I got stuff to go this time. I can't have my money frozen. That's why I almost don't even like taking credit card, to be honest with you. And I've gotten to the point now where, truthfully, I pass along the processing costs. You want to use a credit card? Listen, it's $100. You're paying a 4% processing fee, because that's what the bank charges me.
Yeah.
I don't provide discounts. You want to use your credit card for your convenience? No problem. Listen, you could do Venmo. Everyone, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, good old hard cash. I like cash. So I always tell people up front, listen, you want to use a credit card? You need to point blank pay the processing fee and pay me a day in advance. Because a lot of people will just book appointments, and then they'll go, shop you around. Then, hey, this guy's good for $10 less. Go to him then. Pay the guy. And then I tell people, listen, I'll tell people, listen, you know what? If he's $10 less and you want to, mess around for $10 on your trust, God bless you. Good luck.
Hey,
there's a reason why. There's a reason. That's what I tell people. I'm like, listen, if you're getting a trust on, obviously you got a house, you got assets, you retirement income. Do you really want to waiver and make a mistake on that for $10? I'll tell them, is your notary NNA certified? Do they have error and omissions insurance? Do they have a sutri bond? I don't know. I'm like, well, here's copies of mine. There you go. If you want to risk $10 on that, God bless you. Best of luck to you. Call me when you need to get it fixed.
And that's the thing with when it comes to pricing. When it comes to pricing, I don't really debate back and forth with with the client, because I look at it like this. And I use this analogy all the time. We all know who LeBron is, right? When he's a free agent, can you get him to come play for your team for $1 million a year? It's not going to happen.
Mm-mm.
You're going to have to
Nope.
pay top dollar for his services. So with that in mind, I know what I bring to the table. I know when you're dealing with someone like myself, your documents are not going to get kicked back to you. Again, you're dealing with somebody who has their surety bond. You're dealing with someone who has over $1 million in coverage in place. You're dealing with somebody who's a 5-year notary vet. You're dealing with someone who's very familiar with the documents that you're signing and the process that you need to go to make sure that your documents are verified and checked out. So if you want to send your documents over to someone that's $10 to $15 cheaper and they don't know what they're doing, then hey, take that chance, take that risk. God bless you.
Well, it goes back to that. That's why it's so important. I think, and I've seen you talk about it as well. It's really important how, you project yourself to your clients. It's important, like, listen, I'm a big stickler about being on time. Like I've told everyone, like my kids know, they're sick and tired of hearing it. If you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. If your appointment's at 5 o'clock, don't show up at 4:59. Like when my appointments start at 5, I'm already at the table. My stuff's out. I'm organized. I'm ready to go. I don't have a headphone in my ear listening to text messages. They get my full attention that period of time.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I do things. I mean, I pretty much carry a mobile office with me, as far as I carry one of the big legal briefcases. I could pretty much do everything but like hot wire a car with what I got in there. I'm actually looking now at actually installing getting like an off-lease Prius and actually installing a printer and a scanner in the back with a like 5G Wi-Fi module with a power inverter, just so I can actually have a mobile office. Because every once in a while, listen, things happen. You got to pick up a job in the middle of the day. And with gas prices being what they are up here, I'm sure how it is by you, but I mean, we're at $4.15 a gallon as of this morning.
That's good. I wish we get them kind of gas prices. We're almost at $7 out here.
Oh man, that hurts. That hurts just hearing about. I feel better about myself all of a sudden, man. But I think for us, it's really, again, it goes back to how you project your business. Like perfect. I did my website on a Saturday night. Listen, I'm no web designer, but it's clear, it's concise, it's professional. My logo is professionally done. The verbiage I use in there is very, everything matches the image I'm trying to project for my business. I did a lot of research. I did a ton of looking at other people's websites. And really, I mean, I'm no genius. I just took what I liked from other people's stuff and kind of put it together. And the big thing is now, I was reading a Gardner report a few months ago. That's why, I use Squarespace for my websites and for the website hosting. And all of their websites, their mobile versions of every web page look just as good as the computer-based version. And I say that right now in that over 73% of mobile searches, 73% of internet searches in the US are done on a mobile device.
Yeah.
So if your site's not optimized for mobile, whether it be Android, iPhone, whatever, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because I've seen some websites, and you try to look at it on a phone or like an iPad or something, and you just can't even look at it. Like you pull up mine, it looks exactly the same. You can, all the functionality is there. You can pay directly on there. You can pay, you can book appointments directly. There's no separate amount of functionality. So I think that's, one of the things that's really important, because I think, I see some of and nothing against other folks. I've seen some websites that just look like they had like a 7-year-old throw something together. I mean, take a little bit of time. I mean, when I built my consulting business, it was myself and, one partner, and we legitimately were working out of his garage originally. But if you saw our web presence, our cards, our social media presence, you would have thought we were a $100 million+ company.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, when I left and sold off, I mean, we were doing $70 million a year in revenue. We grew into the company that we were projecting ourselves to be. So I think, especially, we talk about notarization, one of the things is it's really, the end of the day, it's a legal service. So you want to give, your profession the respect it deserves. So, the way you talk to people, the way, you write professionally written emails, when you show up to market. See, the one thing is, I'll tell you, the one thing I'm talking about showing up to market, this was a pet peeve of mine when I had my own company, is that I'm a big believer in not just dropping in and dropping off donuts to someone's office. Because I'll tell you honestly, on my door in my office, we had a 8,000 square foot office in a tower. There's a big sign that said no solicitation.
Yeah.
And and the worst thing is my office was directly across from the door. So when someone would bang on the door, guess who had to get up and go answer it? It was me. And they're like, "Oh, I'm here to see Joe Butler." I'm like, "Yeah, it's me." I'm like, "I don't know who you are." "Oh, I'm just dropping this off for you." I'm like, "Just turn around." I'm like, call up, make an appointment. Because I mean, honestly, I mean, listen, I think there's some valid things to dropping off like donuts and stuff to people. I've done it a couple times. But talk to the receptionist. Say, "Listen, I'm coming in. I just want to drop this off. A couple cards, some leave behinds. Is it okay if I come in and drop it off to you?" Because at the end of the day, you're disrupting someone's day.
Yeah.
Even for 5 minutes. And truthfully, more times than not, when you're just dropping off like donuts to someone's office, it's never going back to where everyone's working. It's not leaving the reception desk.
Right.
They're gonna have a good old party up there on your $15 worth of Dunkin' Donuts. No one who's got a decision making authority is ever gonna see one of those donuts, and your cards are left in the garbage can. I actually had a receptionist at a title company tell me that. It was a great ally of mine, by the way. And I said to her, I go, "Does this ever happen to you?" She's like, "Oh, we get like one or two a week." She goes, "They don't really ever make it to the back office." She goes, "I'll have one or two." Then the end of the day, that goes to the garbage can. So I'll tell you the one thing I've actually started doing, and it really works out well, especially when you're working direct with title. Is I'll talk to the owner and say, "Listen, can we do a lunch and learn where I'll bring in 1, 2 trays of sandwiches. We'll all sit in the conference room. Tell me about the problems you're having in the business, and I'll tell you how maybe I can fix it for you, how I can help you out." And listen, nobody. It goes back to those saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Even though I'm paying for it, you're going to hear from me. And I'm going to personalize every conversation where eventually you can't say no to me,
Yeah.
because I'm going to ask you about your upbringing, your kids. I'm going to know your kids' birthdays. I'm going to know, where you like to go for dinner. Who's your favorite baseball team? And they're going to forget that, they're a client. They're going to think they're going to feel like we're friends. That's why, a lot of the title companies, I mean, I get, for 2 or 3 companies in my area, I get right of first refusal if I want it or don't want it. And, I've only been doing this a year. So it's not like I've been this grizzly vet for 20 years who pounded it out. I just found out a better way to actually, get a hold of people. And I say this it's no national secret. I mean, it's just, that's why I said that when I talked about this. We got to share information with our peers, because all we want to do is it comes down to my old boss used to say years ago, the rising tide lifts all boats. So we can make this industry better by sharing information back and forth.
Yeah.
Listen, the people who are fly by night, who got into it, who think they're going to be overnight millionaires, they're going to fall by the wayside and be out of it in 6 months. It's just because everyone and their mother got into this business during COVID. Like everyone was going to be a loan signing agent. Everyone was going to make $10,000 a month. And
the
listen,
refis is dying down too.
Oh yeah, Lord, yeah. Unfortunately, the refis are dying down, but what I'm seeing ticking up a lot. I'm doing a lot of modifications.
Really?
Knock on wood. I mean, thank God at least the banks are being amicable to doing those versus just foreclosures.
Yeah.
Like I've done. And listen, I'll do modifications all day because they pay pretty well, and you're there 10, 15 minutes in and out the door. I mean, I'm taking more time putting things in my notary journal than I am, because most of them are 2 stamps and like 3 signatures, and we're out the door. Right. Like I'll do those all day. I'll do those all day and twice on Sunday. But it's refis are dropping off bad. And I think at least where I am though is the home inventory is still extremely low, and we're getting into buying season. So I think you're going to see a lot more buyer seller packages popping up, just because rates. Listen, rates are higher now, but they're not. If you look at like a 15-year average, they're still pretty historically low.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to. Listen, I remember my parents bought their first house in the early '80s. Their first mortgage was 14.5%, which is mind-boggling to think. I remember get my first car loan when I was like 21. I think I only got it 8%. I could imagine 14% on a house. But I think, listen, things are going to tick up a little bit higher on the rates, in my opinion. Just talking to a lot of folks in the mortgage industry. And that's the other thing, by the way. It comes down to knowing your craft. Listen, I tell people all the time, listen, read the research reports, listen to the financial news every day, understand what's going on in the mortgage industry. You should know in the morning, you wake up and by 7:30, you should know what the interest rates are that day. For, a 30, a 15, you should know what the arms are. I mean, I'll tell you what's scaring me up by us is I started talking to a few mortgage people. Some of these mortgage companies are going back to doing the ninja mortgages, which that's scaring the heck out of me. So those are back in, I'm a little bit older than you are, my friend. So
Educate
back
me.
in 2008 with the mortgage crisis, the Ninja mortgage was basically no income verification, no job verification, no asset verification. Basically, you just go in and say, yeah, I make this amount. Yeah, they'll just look at your FICO score, and you can walk in and be like, hey, you know what? I make $1 million a year. Oh, great, you make $1 million a year, but you don't have to verify it. So they're coming. Some of these banks are creeping out with that again. That's going to be a repeat of 2008. That 2008 was a rough year for everyone with the mortgage crisis. That was probably one of the worst years for me professionally. I remember I had to lay off 50 employees in one day. Oh yeah, those are the days I thank God I don't drink, because I would have been, probably still not sober right now. 13 years later, that was I had to fly to St. Louis at a client of mine and lay off. It was a day after Easter. I had to lay off almost 50 people on a project and just kind of turn around, walk out, and go right back to the airport. Wow. Let me tell you something. Talk about stressful. That's why nothing in this industry stresses me out at all. But I'll tell you a funny anecdote. So, I think we spoke, on Instagram when I was down in Florida a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So, funny thing, the way home, and again, I'm a little older than you are, so you probably understand the reference. So you remember the group, the Diplomats?
Of course.
With Jim Jones.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm flying JetBlue from Fort Lauderdale, flying back to Jersey. I missed my first flight, got on a last flight on JetBlue. I sit down, and with me, my wife laughs. The second I get on a plane, I fall asleep. Like, before my seatbelt's on, my body shuts off. So I wake up 10 minutes later. Who's sitting next to me? Jim Jones, the Diplomats. But of course, he's got the mask on, of course, because we're still doing COVID stuff. But he's got this gigantic. It looks like an NBA championship ring.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and it says Diplomats. I look at him. He goes, "Oh, you don't know what that is?" I go, look at him, I go, "You're Jim Jones, man." And coming from a 49-year-old, like, white guy, I think I kind of shocked him a little bit. But he did a podcast video, and it's funny. I watch it every day. I watched a clip at least twice a day for motivational purposes. Yeah. So he did an interview, and it was talking about, when he was down and he was out, he just kind of pulled himself up and said, "You know what? Listen, I'm a hustler. It's what I do." And it's talking about not letting his wife, his kid, his mom, feel what he was going through. And the one thing he said, it's in my head every single day, and I listen to it daily. And my wife actually laughs because I'll send it to her via Instagram all the time. And it says, "You know what? So what? Things are bad. You know what? So I won't buy Chanel for, a few months. But what's back popping is Chanel every day." And because he said, because I'm a hustler. And that's what I do. And I sat next to him, and I said to him, because listen, I went through a real down. Jersey is getting motivation from Jim Jones on a clip on Instagram. So for me, it was one of those things where I had the privilege to talk to him. He takes it first and foremost. He is one of the nicest, kindest people I've ever spoken to in my entire lifetime. I sat there laughing with him on the plane for 2 hours, flying up with a drunk guy between us, punching the seat and trying to break his TV screen. And I sat there and I'm sitting there, and it was one of the greatest conversations I've ever had on business in life, was talking to Jim Jones on a plane. So that goes back to, we can learn as a business from anybody and everybody. Listen, I ran a company for 20 plus years. My probably 4 best mentors in this industry are you, Tech, Tiger, Andre, period. I can take any one of the 4 of you guys, put you in $100 million company running it, and it's a $150 million company within 2 years, because you guys understand the concept of business. And that's the thing. I don't care if we're selling lollipops, boozy ice pops, which, by the way, is a thing. I was in Charleston visiting my son at college. They actually have like food trucks that sell alcoholic ice pops. That has to be my next business, by the way, because there were a bunch of college students lined up down the street getting those things. But you know what it is? It comes down to, this whole business is networking. Whether you network with your peers, your mentors, clients, whatever it might be, it gets to the point now, I'll have people, I'll tell you what, one of the great ones I got, believe it or not, one of the weirdest sources of business. And when I first got into the business, I was printing a lot of things at Staples.
Mhm.
And I start talking to the guys in the printing shop at Staples, and everyone assumes that you can go to Staples and get things notarized like you could at a UPS store,
Yeah.
which you can't.
FedEx too.
So they've got a stack of my business cards. I've probably gotten at least 50 to 60 notarizations because they're like, hey, call Joe Butler. Here's his card. He's a notary. He lives 15 minutes away. He'll meet you here in 20 minutes. My phone will ring like, hey, so-and-so from Staples gave me your number. The bank managers now, those folks can't notarize a plethora of documents.
Yeah.
They've got my business card. Hey, you know what? I can't do it, but call this guy. He'll come meet you wherever. Unfortunately, great source of it is, going to retirement communities. Unfortunately, hospices as well. A lot of folks wait till the absolute last minute to get their, power of attorneys or durable medical stuff done. Which is, like you leave those places, like you thank God you're alive and healthy and you can walk around, because you walk in, you see people at their dying moment.
Yeah.
I had a lady a month ago at a hospital who was in terminal hospice, stage 4 cancer. I came to her power of attorney. She's like, before you leave, she goes, I'm going to pray for you that you have a great life. She goes, come give me a hug. And I'm like, this lady's got like days left, and she's worrying about making sure I'm good. And I'm like, I want to be that generous at some point in my life, because I'm not there yet. I'm working on it. But that woman just was like, you know what? I want to hear about you, your life. You're such a great person. I went to leave. She's like, oh, she said, you want to check her cash? I was like, it's the first time ever. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, this one's on me. I'm like, period. I just felt great about it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the other things I saw, and this is a great thing, especially if you can pair up with an attorney. This has become something that, we've been messing around with for a bit. And we found out, the hard way last year. So my older son is a freshman in college, goes to school at the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. And the first week down there was called Hell Week, where it's 20 hours a day training around the clock. So he ended up developing strep along with like half of his freshman class, because they're out in like the swamps of South Carolina running around in August, which is not fun.
Right.
So we get a text message from him. Oh, I'm in the infirmary. And we call the infirmary. Oh, we can't give you information because he's over 18 and you don't have a durable power of attorney. So it's a HIPAA violation. So the light went off and said, listen, maybe if we put a package together where we could give, prospective college students, their parents, a way to put unfortunately a will for a kid, power of attorney, and, the medical directive in one package. We'll come out, myself and my wife will also be the witnesses in Jersey. At the notary can be a witness as well. We'll come down, bring you standard documents, you fill them out, we'll sign them, stamp them, on your way. The town we live in, there's 2,400 kids in the graduating class. 3/4 of them are going to go to college. I guarantee you none of them have that documentation when they go to school.
Yeah.
We started marketing that out a bit. And let me tell you something, I'm going to have a very busy June and July with that, to say the least. So we spoke to an attorney who's a friend of ours and said, listen, obviously we can't draft the documentation, but would you give us like a standard set, or tell people, listen, go to this website, download it, just fill it in. We'll come out and complete the witnessing. We'll bring the witnesses, the notary right to your house. I don't care if it's 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. Boom, we'll roll over and take care of it. So, there's a way to make money in this business everywhere. You just got to, you got to think a little bit outside the box.
Absolutely.
Have a lot of faith in yourself. That's the biggest thing, man. If you have faith in yourself and you have the confidence, believe me, it goes back to the old saying, sometimes you got to fake it before you make it.
Yep.
And a lot of times, I've been in, you probably the same thing. I've been in, in closings where, unfortunately the person's attorney wants to be there, and, they think they're controlling the closing. I make them know real quick, they're not. That, it's my closing, sit there, review the documents, and please be quiet.
Right.
I had a guy all of a sudden at a closing on a $13 million house on the beachfront up here. It was like, oh, I want to change the signing order. I want to change the stacking order. I'm like, nope. So if I return it different, they're going to dock my pay. Guy's like, well, blah, blah, blah. I go, I'm in charge. I'm the stamp. I'm the closing person assigned. I go, if I get up and leave, it's not closing today. So do you a favor. Here's a copy. Look at it, but let's start signing now. So that's the thing. It's really, it's about, having a lot of confidence in yourself and your abilities. Listen, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do this at the end of the day. And it's the God's honest truth. You don't. And I'm not discounting, my intelligence level, your or anyone's at all. But it's not, listen, at the end of the day, we're not doing heart surgery, and we're not Elon Musk putting a rocket in space. I'd like to be, but listen, I'd love to be able to buy Twitter for $46 billion, but not happening today. Maybe tomorrow. But we have an opportunity to really help people out and make their lives a little bit easier. Like when I work every day, when I was in my old profession, one of the things, especially to the end of my career, like I had like no fulfillment because I was just like, basically my life was a profit and loss statement. It was like, okay, did we make money or lose money today?
Yep.
I'm out there dealing with people every day where, you know what, I'm making their life a little bit easier, a little bit better, having some great conversations. I've had people I've done loan signings for. I was in my cards with them who'll call me for other stuff. Like, hey, so-and-so gave me your number. You did a loan closing. I need to get a will and a trust. Like you roll out. It's all about networking in this industry. It's all networking, period. And I think, and you're great at it, but I tell you, you're probably better than anybody else I know at this, at farming out opportunities to other people. Listen, being part of your group. You and I got hooked up because I went and did a trust for you one day.
Yep.
It's happened to be someone in Jersey. I was awake. I get up early on the weekends and ended up that, we had a good opportunity. You and I became friendly. We started talking more. And that's what I think, so many people in this industry are hesitant to do is to network with each other. I don't mean like going to these like, cockamamie meetups where we're going to have like, chips and dips and a beer. It's like, listen, let's professionally network and help each other.
Right.
Listen, if I could float you a job, I'll do it. If I get a request in California, you're the first person I'm calling. And you get something in New Jersey, I can guarantee you my phone's going to ring.
Absolutely.
It's not even a question because at the end of the day, we've established trust with each other.
Right.
When I went to do your trust out in Jersey, I treated it like it was my own. I went there not representing the attorney on the document. I went there representing you and your brand. And that's something we have to take a little more care of each other is, listen, there's enough business out there for all of us.
Right.
There is. There's no doubt. That's why now I started following your advice on, I represent myself as a national signing agency. I have clients call me, I started doing a lot of corporate documents too now. Listen, you get situations like, I haven't gotten the miracle, hey, you get the airport phone call yet, but I've gotten through a lot of corporate documents. I did a bunch of stuff recently for a guy who bought like 7 or 8 shopping centers. Same amount of time as normal loan closing, but it was, I was able to charge him 3 times the amount. So I mean, we got to just all stick together. And, truthfully, you look at it this way, we all can learn from each other. We can pick up one little nugget to make ourselves, 1% better, what we're doing, then it's worth it. I mean, seriously, look at us, you and I, on paper, typically wouldn't be friends. We wouldn't have, how old are you? What are you, like late 20s?
32. Well, I'll be 32 this year.
You're aging well, my friend. You're aging well. I was just like 28, 29. So that's good for you. But you know what? We have a lot of respect. We have a lot of respect for each other. Listen, again, listen to Tech, listen to Tiger is an absolute monster, man. That guy is like, his call scripts are hands down the best thing I've ever heard. I wish I knew his techniques when I was selling like $20 and $30 million of software. I would have probably doubled. And I think again, and I think Andres needs to start paying me commission. But again, his training classes are by far one of the best things out there. He's on top of it. He's nothing but an absolute gentleman on top of it. And that's the one thing, you've been so responsive about stuff. He's been great. Tiger has been, every once in a while, I'll float him a question. And I don't get, buy this course, we do this. It's like, I get an answer. Yeah. People ask me questions, I give them answers. It's really, we have a great industry that's really theoretically recession proof. I mean, listen, are the mortgage stuff going to go up and down? Yeah. That's why you got to be willing to notarize or do any sector of the business. It's out there.
Yeah.
Listen, who would have thought, if you asked me a year ago, would I be working at property management companies, helping them with all their foreclosures? Would never thought about it.
Yeah.
But guess what? It's lucrative. I'm able to help employ a friend of mine, make him money in retirement. And that's the thing. We got to be willing to help each other. And, people got to realize the help has to go both ways. That's why I said people always ask, oh, can you mentor me? It's like, well, what am I getting out of that other than just being a nice guy?
Can I pick your brain?
Yeah, but it's like, and I always tell people, listen, I'll answer a question or 2, 3, 4, but when you pass a half an hour of my time, then, it comes back to, I hate to say it comes back to time equals money.
Yeah.
That's money I'm not signing or I'm not doing something else or I'm not, focusing on my sales company where, I represent, 6 or 7 consulting companies and hardware and software firms. still working a lot of, because I never want my Rolodex to expire. Because let me tell you something, the second you step away from any industry, I mean, you're only as good as your last sale or your last notarization. It's, you've got to stay current, stay in contact with people. Even if you're not getting business from a title company, call them, check in, see how they're doing, ask how their personal life's going.
Yeah.
Because guess what? That next closing might come up 30 minutes later and you're fresh in their mind.
Yeah.
It comes down to it. Again, I cannot stress it enough, man. Sales is a contact sport. The more you contact, the more you're going to sell.
It's just like that, y'all. This was such a great interview. So many gems, so much to unpack. You're going to have to watch this not once, not twice, but quite a few times. And I got to ask you before we get out of here, where do you see your business in the next 5 to 10 years?
So what I actually want to do is I want to start. So my company is Speedy Mobile Notary of New Jersey. I actually want to open franchises actually along the Eastern Seaboard. So we've considered actually moving to coastal South Carolina recently. We have fell in love with the Charleston area. But I want to start focusing on, I want to see where this whole concept of RON work is going. It's still in its infancy. I want to see where it's going. I'm still, I still mess around a little bit with Doc Verify and some other platforms. I want to start working more on corporate stuff, more working, alongside attorneys. I found a lot of success working in the auto industry as well.
Yeah.
And I think, I really want to start seeing, unfortunately, where this eviction business piece goes as well. But I want to start opening up franchises and along the coastal states. I want to have Speedy Mobile Notary of Delaware, Virginia, of Maryland, of North South Carolina. I want to grow that out and allow people to take an established brand and be able to start a business. I think one of the tough things is the startup cost for people.
Yeah.
And if I can do it in a way where I can split fees and I'll provide them the laptop, I'll provide them the training, I'll provide their printers for them, and do like a rev share model, under something like that, it's what I'd love to get to.
Where can the people find you? Drop everything.
So,
social media, website, where can the people find you?
Okay, so for right now, you're gonna laugh because I got to follow my advice. I'm bad on social media, so that's coming. So my website is speedynotarynj.com. I do have an Instagram page as well, but that's kind of a work in progress. I'm gonna hire one of my kids to start building up my stuff, but it's speedynotarynj.com. I'm always reachable at jbutler@speedynotarynj.com. Anytime I answer emails 24/7. I don't sleep. I am coffee all day. All high octane, my friend. So listen, any questions, any problems, listen, you can call me 24/7. People have questions, want help, reach out to me via email, hit me up on the website. I'm more than happy to help out whenever folks need help.
I gotta record this real quick. There we go. Yo, I appreciate you, Joe. I really appreciate
you as well,
on, man. This was incredible. This is one of the few. This is one of the few podcasts where I didn't do too much talking, but I just sat back. I just sat back.
Oh, yeah.
When you're on fire like that, you gotta. When you have somebody that's on fire like you was, like, you gotta keep letting them go, because it's just so much that you're giving out.
No, and I appreciate. Listen, I appreciate you more than you could ever know. I mean, truthfully, I consider you a friend and a brother, and I'm looking forward to having a great relationship with you for a long time.
It's been real, y'all. Appreciate you all for tapping in to the Stamper Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you like this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and make sure you listen to this a couple of times, because again, it's a lot to unpack in this episode, and this is going to give you a lot of value. And until next time, y'all, peace.